It's video time here again in Burlington, Vermont. I want to talk about the large gap between my perspective and that of the rest of the world regarding basic aspects of science. As I've described, I believe it's metabolism that turns into genetics, not the other way around. And that embraces the spirit of creativity, which is the nature of nature when you're dealing with flowing energy, generalized open system dynamics, God. So it turns out that from that perspective, all illnesses, even when genetically created, manifest themselves as metabolic disorders. What I'm saying is that all of our illnesses are really metabolic illnesses, regardless of their cause, be it genetic or environmental. So this is a rather different kind of an approach, because really all of the disease categories that we look at are nothing more than labels on an underlying phenomena. But if you don't understand the underlying phenomena, you live in the world of labels. So each of these diseases has a common underlying cause, and that is a metabolic imbalance that generates excess free radicals that manifests itself as the disease in our bodies, because wherever the disease appears, that's the weak link, so to speak, in our biochemical flow, in the homeostasis of the flow-dependent structure that we are, the probe in the big chemistry set called the planet Earth. We are nothing but probes in adaptability. So adaptability is the key that I'm really looking at here. What is the nature of adaptability and our failure to appropriately adapt that manifests itself as disease? So ultimately, whenever there's an imbalance in our flow, it produces an excess free radicals. In my case, I have HLA-B27, which is predisposes me to autoimmune, what they call autoimmune diseases, okay? Or predisposes other inflammatory issues. I'm positive for the rheumatoid factor. I've had Lyme disease, Renault syndrome, all sorts of things that are pro-inflammatory. Well, doctors give each one of those a name, but in reality, they're all the same thing. They're a metabolic imbalance that causes free radicals. So what do? You treat the name or you treat the underlying cause? Unfortunately, our pharmaceutical industry looks to directly address the thing that manifests the symptoms. So in other words, they're missing the underlying cause. So when you only address symptoms, then what winds up happening is the underlying cause of the illness is maintained. So the imbalance continues to manifest itself in addition to the typical unknown and often horrible side effects of the pharmaceuticals that you're taking, because they're not designed to fix the problem, they're designed to hide the problem. So this manifests itself in the whole absurdity of our pharmaceutical system, where they do studies in tissue cultures or animals that are completely irrelevant, really, to human beings, because we are all unique individuals within our collection. Human biochemistry, mouse biochemistry, those are all can be looked at simply as distributions of molecules in the big test tube planet Earth. And we call one collection humans and other collections animals, but they're all the same thing, probes in adaptability. So anyway, what I've been able to do with myself is to really reverse essentially all of the problems that I have. I've been on crutches again for the past few weeks because I had a sprained ankle. When I was in Spain, I twisted my ankle. Well, that's an inflammatory response that's going to happen there, because the damage has to be removed and replaced and fixed. So there's a whole lot of construction work that goes on. But of course, all of the biochemistry involved in that construction work and reconstruction work is the same biochemistry that underlies any other illness, any other pain causing or damage causing or degradation of the system or of unique little pieces. I mean, cancer starts out as a cellular problem, becomes an organismic problem as it amplifies the imbalance through the layers of organization that constitute each of us as experimental probes in adaptability. Anyway, I hope that my rambling makes some sense and that we appreciate that no matter what your illness is, from a physical, chemical point of view, it is, from what I now believe, reversible. So I don't know what that means in terms of longevity for the population as a whole, but I can see within myself. Remember, I'm 70 years old. That I am able to reverse these things, that I go through a procedure of healing, regardless of what the cause is. It's the same kind of a procedure. And it involves turning on fat burning so that you can recycle your damaged pieces, and then building again, moving yourself further from equilibrium, which for me means bike riding and walking when I can, and going to the gym regularly, going to an incredibly good chiropractor so that my spine moves again instead of being stuck. When things are stuck, you don't have flow. I have a friend who I'm very sad to say is just went in for a spinal fusion. From everything I know, when you lock together those two vertebrates, you've impaired any possible flow for reconstruction. I've had degenerative disc disease. I'm 2 inches shorter than I used to be. I've had herniated discs in my neck. It all can be repaired. And, for the past few years, I go to the chiropractor a few times a week. I figure this is the only time in my life that I'm going to be able to reverse things, because once my life is gone, it's over. So I better experiment now and use whatever resources I have to try and build myself, move myself further from equilibrium. So whenever I go traveling and I suffer the consequences, I come back, and for the next month or so, I work out regularly, extensively, and move myself further from equilibrium again, as whatever problems I may be having have to be dealt with. In my case, it's typically extreme pain in my feet and legs. Thankfully, my back and neck has been fixed because I now have movement again. You get a fusion, and now you wind up impeding flow, so the next thing that's going to happen is the next vertebra is going to decay, and you have a progressive deterioration, because that's how our medical pharmaceutical model works. Because they don't understand how life works, how can you expect them to fix the problem except on occasion by accident? But the nature of the pharmaceutical industry is to hide symptoms, not to fix things. Which leads me to another quick thought before I shut up. I believe that there is a role for these pharmaceuticals, because what they have done is they have educated us about the fine details of flow. For the most part, if you're trying to fix things with that idiot approach of trying to control the flow rather than guide the flow, okay, that's the problem. So we have to learn how to guide the flow, and you got to understand what's going on in order to do that. So there's tremendous hope from what I see in terms of people that I share my knowledge with who apply it, whether we're talking about fixing psychological issues or fixing physical issues. It's always the same. What we see happening, for example, is people who have a lot of stress and have had traumatic histories, be they genetic or not, that has resulted in psychological imbalances. Those imbalances bring the complexity of the mind closer to equilibrium. And since we are this pyramiding of pockets of flow-dependent complexity that build higher levels of flow-dependent complexity, and these biochemical hallucinations are all talking to one another, just like the visuals of a psychedelic experience. It's just very, very interesting when you shift this perspective and realize that you have control based on your knowledge and nothing more. Your knowledge that allows you to make intelligent decisions, even though from my perspective, we're just an unfolding chemical reaction with the illusion that we make decisions. I don't believe there's such a thing as free choice, because you can never tell whether the choice you made was because of free choice or because it was the only choice you could make based on the unfolding of your biochemistry. So I hope some of these ramblings are of functionality. They are for many people. I don't always know that I'm effectively communicating. Peace and love.